One hair is now in place. The new shirt is on. It's all set.
Oh, look, what can I say? What can I say? I'm just making sure people can't see all our crap in the background.
Yeah, because I mean, they've got to see Robyn. You gotta, like, I have to say, I love your name. Like, it's a great podcast name, like Robyn Priest. Like, it just.
Really?
Yeah. It just has a ring to it.
That's funny.
I heard the name and it's like, okay, I got to find out what she does. And, you know, we're born with our names and people struggle pronouncing mine, but I wouldn't give it up for anything. But other than that, it's all good. It's all good.
Oh, hang on. I know my business partner will want this. Charlotte will, like, woohoo. Look at this.
There you go.
Laughing. All a happening thing now, David. We've got it covered.
So, let's just, I mean, this is pre-recorded, so I can cut out anything, edit it afterwards. I'll send you a copy before it airs to make sure you're comfortable with everything that's going on. Yeah. Not that we're going to talk about anything totally out of bounds, but it's
let's go. Let's make it fun.
Yeah, I like it. And so you know, I've got, you know, like in terms of just the things that I want to talk about is just isolation. And I really want to focus on this peer. And I know your approach to peer, it can be interpreted many different ways. I'm just going to bring something up here. Hold on 1 second before I get this. Your approach to peer is more clinical.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
No.
I'm going to take it literally, like this. No. Yes. And
nothing clinical about us at all.
Good. Let's just see.
Oh, hell no.
Okay. I'm going to open up these two things and let's see if they open up. And there we go. Okay, so I can do that. That's great. Zoom meeting, awesome. So what I will do is I'm going to start in, and I'm going to introduce you. Then I want to talk about isolation, and then I want to talk about peer support, and then we can talk about wherever it goes. I'm organic. Like I don't have a pre-script. I have broad fences that guide a discussion, but other than that, you've got your situations. You know, driver leaves home. They just had a fight. Let's talk about very specific advice.
I think we just go where it goes, right?
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
I'm an organic person. I never, like, even when I do keynotes, I don't really have notes.
Like, I like that.
Slides, and then I go, oh, what are we chatting about? We'll just chat about this.
Okay, we will get along, because in my classrooms, the book is the book, yes, and there is a book that outlines the curriculum, but I quickly find out where they're at, and that's where we're going to go. And then apply it. It'll come back and we'll weave it in, but it'll be all good. So I'm going to start as if we're in the broadcast, and then we'll just kick it off. Good morning, Canada. David with the Wow Show here. I'm super pumped about our guest today. Because we're going to be talking about something that more people need to talk about, and that is mental health. It affects all of us. I don't care who you are, how old you are, how young you are, where you come from. Mental health affects all of us, and it's always an important topic. It's especially an important topic for people in transport during the season of the pandemic and COVID. My guest is the one and only Robyn Priest in Winnipeg, Manitoba, or close to, who is an international expert on peer support and mental health. Robyn, thank you for being here.
Hey, nice to be here. And I always get a little weirded out when people talk about me being an expert in mental health. I'm an expert in my own, which some days works well, some days doesn't work as others, but I think I've just been super fortunate to get to work around the world and have some fun talking about my own experiences. So, yeah.
So here's your parallel with trucking, because you have had some exposure to the transport sector. with your partner, Charlotte. Here's your parallel. You've been everywhere. So you're a traveler, much like truckers who and professional drivers who are all over the place on the road and go from one place to another. How many countries have you lived in? Tell us a little bit about Robyn Priest. Where were you born? Where have your travels taken you? How did you get to where you are? And I saw in a video that we're really lucky because you said, I'm staying in Canada.
Yes, yes. So, I'm Australian. I'm a bit of a nomad, I think. I grew up with a father who had his own experience of mental health issues, and he used to move us a lot, like every couple of years, and we would move states. And just in terms of those long haul drives, we moved from Adelaide to Brisbane. It's about 28-hour drive, and my dad would like wake up and go, we're going to Adelaide this weekend. And I just got my license. I'd be driving across the country, trying to miss the kangaroos in the night. And I used to follow the long haul truckers because I was like, well, I'm pretty safe behind them.
Yes.
And we'd drive there, we'd have a couple of days and we'd drive home. And it got me into that nomadic life, I think. So Australia, obviously, I lived in New Zealand on and off for 12 years. I went back and forward, couldn't work out where I wanted to live, very expensive moving countries.
Yes.
And then I had the coolest job. I got to be part of a team that did a report for the Mental Health Commission of Canada.
Yes.
Called Making the Case for Peer Support. I got to do all the focus groups across Canada.
Wow.
So I started off in St. John's in Newfoundland,
Yep.
ended up in Whitehorse in the Yukon, and as any good Aussie does, I went, oh, I want to drive to Alaska. So I hopped in this tiny little rental car in October, never having driven in snow and ice, and drove across the Alcan and was hanging out. And I always check out like peer support services in relation to mental health. And so I went to see these people and they went, oh, we just got the first executive director job coming up. Do you want to, apply? And I went, I'll apply, and if I get it and get a work permit, I'll move. And so I moved from New Zealand where it was, 20-ish Celsius, 22 Celsius.
A lot of the year.
In February to Anchorage, Alaska, where I think the day I arrived, it may have been minus 30 Celsius.
Yes.
And I stayed there for a couple of years and then got headhunted to work for an organization where I was talking about recovery from mental health. Yep. And peer support in mental health. And I was working in different states in the US, but I also got like the coolest part. I got to work in the Pacific. So I was working in Guam and Palau and American Samoa and the Northern Marianas. And so I wasn't doing that driving long haul stuff. I was doing the sit my ass in a seat for 40 hours on planes to get somewhere, work like,
but
and get back on the plane.
That's another parallel because while truckers are going somewhere all the time, professional drivers are going somewhere all the time, our asses are stuck in the seat. And so
whether you're on a little more concentration as a trucker getting on the plane. But anyway, I while I was working, I was doing stuff in Canada, in the Pacific, US, Australia, and New Zealand. I met Charlotte Sitnick, my business partner, doing some training, and we were at a conference, and one day she said, "You want to start a business?" And I went, "Sure." She goes, "You have to move to Winnipeg." And I went, "Okay." And the country gave me a work permit. Well, I had some. I'd been coming in and out doing work. And so September 2018, I popped up and moved to Winnipeg.
Can I make this statement? Because as I'm listening to you, I'm not, I am jealous. I love it. That's more the proper word. I love your openness. And here's what I was thinking is that opportunity comes to people who are open to it.
Mm.
And that's a broad statement, but being open to it is a battle of the mind.
I totally, because I think what happens is like we grow up with all these societal norms. This is what you do, this is how it looks. You grow up,
Yeah.
you get a relationship, it lasts or it doesn't. You know, they hope it does, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not always that good at them because I keep moving. But you know, it's this place where we think it has to look one way. And I think one of the things I always talk about is is find your groove. And if your groove is stability,
Yes.
consistency, then go with it. If
Yeah.
you're kind of the person that's like me, that doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
If you're open to it, there's so many things where you can look outside the box. And
Yeah.
if you're prepared to take that step, and I think that's one of those things, right? We get in our comfort zone, and even when it's uncomfortable,
Yes.
like it's comfortable because it's safe, we know it, and
Yeah.
there's this fear factor about if I do something different or step outside this box, am I going to fail? Are people going to look at me oddly and judge me? Like, and then there's also I've chatted with friends, right, who have like significant mental health diagnosis, as do I.
Yeah.
Uh, but they've said one of the things that they were super scared about taking a step was, what if they achieved what they wanted? They knew who they were as someone who'd been labeled with a mental health issue
Yeah.
and told all these things. You can't do this. You know, you'll always have to be careful. You have to be on medication, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they were like, but what if I try something and it works? Who am I?
Yeah.
I don't know myself to be this like well person. I've been taught to be this, you're not, like you're not good enough, we'll have to look after you.
I know.
And so it's been really interesting with those kind of steps, and just
So I've written a word, and it's going to become the theme of to our listeners. You're not seeing it on the radio, but you'll see it on the replay because we're doing auto video on the YouTube channel. It's the word possible,
yeah.
and that's going to be the theme for our listeners today. And I love what you said, because I want to apply this to the transport sector. Is that you said, like, I've got my issues too,
Yeah.
and I've had my struggles, and in many ways, our environment shapes how adventurous naturally we are or we aren't. Are like you, my life was never followed the typical supposed to pattern,
Mm.
and so I've come to learn to love chaos.
Ah,
Like I love when the lights go out and the projector doesn't work and it's just me in the audience, and they think the day's over, but I'm going, you're here, I'm here, let's go.
let's do it.
Let's
Let's do
go. I want to talk to that we all have our struggles, and it may not be the direct application. I'm going to throw this at you, but I was looking at some of your stuff online, and people should on YouTube just Google, I guess it's YouTube, Robyn Priest, Robyn, and then Priest. And it talks about values of peer support, and we're going to come into that. But it says that peer support is strengths focused.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and here's my take on that, and you can talk about that or comment on it. Do not throw away the struggles you've been through, because as I'm able to stare them in the face, and I have had to stare them in the face and know what they're about, when I use things like peer support and other things to come out, it becomes my strength.
Yeah.
I have an amazing opportunity to share in the very areas. It was like my PhD in that area of life. and,
Absolutely.
and I have amazing power and strength in that area with the people around me.
It's one of those things, right? That often the struggles that we have are, sometimes people see our struggles as weaknesses or
No,
deficits.
no,
And I actually think the struggles are the things that create who we are, the
yeah,
strength that we actually have internally. And I like this isn't the transport industry, but I think there's a relatability here. So I was doing some work once in a residential treatment center, and we were doing this work about getting your dream job.
mm,
And this guy was like, well, I'm never going to get a job. And I'm like, oh, why not? And he goes, I've been in jail, in and out of jail for 17 years. And I went, oh, I said, well, what were you in jail for? And he goes, break and enter. I can get in anywhere. I just can't get out in time.
yeah,
And like, everyone had a bit of a giggle. And we were doing this thing about looking at what are the skills we have, even the things that people don't see as skills. And all of a sudden he was like, oh,
yeah.
and he said, I'll be back. And he got a pass and he went to the local security firm and he went in and he said, you need me. You protect buildings. I know where every single building is vulnerable. He got a job,
That's
like on
amazing.
the spot.
Okay.
And I think it's that piece that I think, in mental health we often get called manipulative.
Yes.
And I'm like, damn that. We're just great group negotiators because we can
Yeah.
get what we want. We're creative, we're strategic, and those are skills that are valued.
Yeah.
So I often do workshops with anyone, not just people with mental health, but anyone dealing with their stuff, and say, what are the words that even staff in services, and we did it in a corporation last week, and I said, what are the words you use about yourself
Yeah.
or the words that other people use that have a negative connotation, and let's brainstorm with everyone, come up with those strength-based things about it, and pick one that resonates with you.
Yeah.
And you watch people's body language. And if I can just share one that's a little out there. So I was at a conference, got everyone doing this, and at the end, there's 180 people in the room, and I go, does anyone have a word they can't think of something? And this little woman goes, yes. And I'm like, oh, what's your word? Because I think I'm all that, right? I got
Yeah.
this. And she goes, slut and whore. And I
Wow.
was like, oh, and you know what it's like, David. If you can't think of something, you ask the audience. So I'm like, oh, anyone in the audience know what a strength-based word might be? And this person on the other side of the room stands up and she goes, yeah, you're just fun loving. And this person went, oh, I am, aren't I? I'm just love to have fun. And her whole demeanor changed. And it was just in an instant. And why can't we take those things where people are judging us or we're judging ourselves, and get some support to flip that like a light switch?
So I want to say that judging people that judge us and we judge ourselves, my experience is, and it's true for me, that I'm far more critical
Mm,
of myself than anyone else could ever be. And so
yeah,
I've written another word, and it's overcomer.
yeah.
And so in my mind, there's three players in this game called health, mental health,
Mm,
life, achievement, overcoming. It's myself, it's them, the people around me, and it's the environment.
yep, totally.
And I think that too few people realize how powerful the environment that they choose to put themselves in has an impact on who they believe that they are and what they become and how they achieve. And the obstacle for most people, including the drivers that are listening to and the people in transport listening to this podcast, the biggest obstacle is ourselves. And that creativity that you talk about, creativity is simply, to me, you don't have to be born with it. Creativity is to be audacious enough to expose yourself to something new every single day, to stretch your mind, because if you can see something different, now you can believe it, now you can achieve it, and that whole positive path starts. The environment for truckers is isolation. And,
Yeah.
and here's what, if I picture isolation as a field, there's part of isolation that's good. I mean, every once in a while, I need to clear my head. Grab a Tim Hortons. I go on, get in my car, roll down the window up to -10. And if it's -10, I crank the heat in the car and I turn on my 80s music and I hit the road and it's just me and my thoughts and it's awesome. But isolation, 8 to 10 hours a day, 13 hours a day, if they're not reaching out, if that's a field, I mean, it allows shame to grow. It allows anger to grow. It allows judgment of others to grow, and not based on any reality, but based on this thing that's simply going untested in our mind. But because we focus on it long enough, we start to believe that. Because Robyn Priest is about my truth. It becomes our truth. But in life, it's important to distinguish the truth from what's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Our minds are the best traps that we have in the world. They're like, you're not good enough. Oh, no. Oh, no, you're not. So, like, let's be real. I do work across the world, right? In
Yeah,
different countries. Last night I was on a call setting up work in Australia, but I still sit here in my head and go, why are people listening to me? Like, I'm just this kid from Australia who likes to chat.
yeah,
And my head does that. And, even before I came on here, I'm like, what have I got to say that anyone would want to listen to in the trucking industry? And we're sitting here and I'm like, yep, I'm just going to have a chat with Dave and we'll see how it goes, right? But we get in our heads and we play it over and over. And the piece is I have a little sign just above my computer, right? And I'm looking at it. It says, choose with no regret in each moment
mhm,
and compromise, but not compromise me.
yeah,
And I have those there to remind myself that I do get choices
yeah,
in each moment. What am I listening to?
yeah,
And I'm not doing the isolation that, you guys and girls out there driving trucks are doing, right? And I listened to the podcast where you were talking about COVID, and I want to say I am appalled at the treatment that you're getting. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you do,
right,
because you put yourselves out there every day. You open yourselves up
yeah,
for the isolation that the rest of the world are complaining about at the moment. And
yeah,
I go, I can't, I live by myself, right? And I'm allowed to bubble with one person. I
yes.
see them once or twice a week. Otherwise, I'm sitting in my
Like
apartment.
Charlotte.
Oh, no, actually, I can't see Charlotte. Uh, it's the weirdest thing. Charlotte used to come here and work. We had two desks and I would see her every day. And then November, when Manitoba hit its things down, I had a choice. Do I want to spend time with Charlotte, who's, she's got her family, or do I want to, bubble with the person that I'm dating? I'm like, oh, I'm going to pick that person. Um, but true. Well, come on, let's
Yeah,
be.
I don't blame
But
you.
um, it's it. I haven't made a choice to isolate the way I do in this moment, but truckers made a choice, knowing that there was going to be times where they were going to be on the road 13, 14 hours plus. I
Yeah,
know. Um, and, they were going to be with themselves, basically.
yeah,
And, I look and I think, well, they at least thought they could stop and chat to someone at a truck stop. And now it's like, nope, don't come in here.
yeah,
Um, and so, like, one of the things I think is nobody's actually talked to the trucking industry about the skill set they have to support the rest of the world in how to deal with some of that isolation. We
Yeah.
haven't tapped into that. And why haven't we?
It is their strength.
Totally.
And the trucking community gets the word community.
Yeah.
They truly can, in parts of it, live it like no other lives it. And I would say that even regionally in Canada, the prairies and the Maritimes are two regions that really have community as a part of their DNA.
Yes. You have to survive. And I think, I'm not in the trucking industry, but I think that piece, that's the piece when I think about like when I think about peer support, right?
Yeah.
It's about people with similar experiences being able to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Right? I listen to what you talk about in those podcasts, right? And listen to people's experience. And I can go, wow, I can relate something, but it's not the same, right? So when I think about peer support, it's about relationship, it's about relatability. And a trucker talking to a trucker about, like, oh, I got in like just under the wire and I had to unpack and then I had to pack and I had to get out of there and I didn't have the time. And oh my, like, I can't relate to that in the same way that someone lives and breathes it can.
Because they
And
faced that struggle. They've stared it in the
yeah,
eyes.
and that's why I think there's a piece for me about, like, how do we set up those connect? They're probably out there. As you said, there's a community, but it's super important to kind of look at how we foster that.
So here's a challenge I'm going to throw out to our listeners. If you are a company that is actively, and I know that many companies will partner a new driver with someone in the
Mhm.
company to get them a start, and it's more around the training aspect. But I'm sure it's out there. So if you're a company that is running a peer support type of program, no matter how you think it's framed or the framework of it, and you're leveraging it and you have experience in it, can you let us know about it? So David at wowtrucks.com, or go to wowtrucks.com. You'll see the contact form. Let me know about it. I'd love to feature it. I'd love to showcase it, because I think Robyn's right. We need to celebrate this, because out of the struggle comes a strength and a gift that this industry has to give other people, and it's really powerful. So yeah, that's a challenge that I'm definitely going to throw out there.
The other thing I want to say is to the companies that don't have one,
Yep.
like, it's free to chat with me, just to call me up and chat
Yes.
about, maybe you want to. Like, I would love to be able to have a conversation about that as a possibility, because I think one of the things is, like, I think it is important to have some structure, like a little bit of training to it, because we can do damage if all we're talking about is our war stories
Yes.
and we haven't learned, like, how to have some of those conversations without just dipping into the war story. Because sharing is great.
Yeah.
It's important to kind of think about, and some of the values around peer support are about, like hope and recovery. Like,
Yeah.
yes, there's a way through this. I'm feeling super isolated. I don't know what to do. I feel like, and I'm going to put it out there, I feel like killing myself. I have no idea how to get through this. And like I'm not pushing us. I'm saying just check it out. And if there's someone else
Yeah.
that does some good training or whatever, use that as well. We provide great training, but that's beside the point. But being able to, how do we have those conversations?
Yeah.
How do we have the tough ones and not be the deer in the headlight? If you're chatting with another driver and they're like, I'm so done, I'm just ready to end this. And you're like, what do I do now? And the reality is, we can just sit in the conversation, because humans want to connect with humans.
Biggest thing you can do is listen. I want to throw this past you, because you hit a button with me in a good way in terms of what you just said. Many people view mental support or dealing with mental issues as focusing on them.
Mm.
And while I think it does manage them, I don't like that the perception of focusing on them because we
Mhm.
magnify what we focus on, to your point.
Yep.
If it's just about, talking about our struggle, then our struggle becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's not that you don't talk about it, but you talk about it to expose it, and then you move on. And that's what peer support should be, is this accountability to say, what are you going to do? Like, what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? A positive sort of, okay, let's move away. Let's starve. Let's starve the struggle and move into something better.
I mean, one of the things we have to be conscious of in terms of peer support for me, right? This
Yeah.
is how I teach it, that we want to come without an agenda. So my agenda isn't, I'm going to fix you, I'm going to move you. It's,
What?
I'm going to be passionately curious about you. And when I'm passionately curious, I can ask questions that have you start to explore what it could look like if it was different. Like, I call our peer support training exploration facilitation.
Yeah.
Like, my job is to facilitate you exploring what you really want your world to look like. And so I don't come in with, I want to solve it, fix it, get you somewhere, but I want you to be able to explore. And in the way I do that,
Yeah.
like, you will move through stuff. And maybe right in this minute, you're not quite ready to move through it, but
Yeah.
this next minute you might be.
Yeah. And that's the
And
beautiful
I'm there
thing
to
about
help you
peer support.
explore
They're
it.
always there. And so they're there when you're ready.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that. This is one of those things that's going to end up on LinkedIn with your face and then the quote and I want to get the second part of it correct, because you said, I'm just going to be passionately curious so that, what did you say? So that we could eventually maybe explore what can be different?
Well, I'm just passionately curious. Like, I talk about being an exploration facilitator.
Yeah.
Like, I support people to explore what they want in life,
Yeah.
like that. So I'm passionately curious about who you are
Mm.
and what makes you tick and what's important to you, without an agenda, without judgment. Like, I'm just going to be in this with you
Yeah.
to allow you to decide where you want to go. But I'll be asking questions
Yeah.
that
Not telling.
have you think. I'm world renowned for things called respectful challenges
Hmm.
in trainings with people. And one of my big questions is, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Is it working? Is it giving you what you truly want? Or do you actually know what you truly want? You
Yeah.
might not. You might have never sat down and thought, what is it that I really want in life? And I'm I'm cautiously optimistic that through this COVID stuff, more people are going, what is really important to me?
Yeah.
I hope, instead of, I'm just trying to survive the day. Because for me, I want to live life. I don't want to survive it.
Yeah.
Because that to me sounds pretty boring. But that's me. There's other people who are like, I want to survive this. And I'm like, okay, that's your choice. No judgment here.
So you admitted that before the call, you're wondering what you had to contribute, and you're contributing a ton. And you just threw out two important messages. Number one, for leaders, there is power in just being passionately curious about your
Mhm.
employee.
Totally.
And people don't like to be told what to do. When we try to control people, it's one of the three things we need as individuals: to be open. It just doesn't work. And um, I'm thinking that the message to drivers and people that work in transportation companies, to the employee,
Mm.
is that we need to really step back and go, if we're not passionately curious, it may simply be because it's not our personal failure, but we're in an environment where we don't have those inputs. We haven't chosen to put ourselves around people, places, and things, or listen to things that expand our mind and thinking in terms of what's possible, instead of keep it focused on what's not. And so if you're out there, and we all get to this point where you're fed up with being fed up with life,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, the question is, who could you start hanging out with that's different than your current inputs? It's not that you ditch all your current friends. That's not what I'm saying. But who could you hang out with that would put some passionate curiosity? They love you, they support you, and they're not going to tell you what to do because we don't
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But they're just going to explore with you.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of saying to people, like, we don't get to control a lot in life. We have this. I was listening to the podcast that you sent me, and you were talking about it too. What do we have control over? The reality is we thought we had control over a lot. And we don't.
Yeah,
Like, we don't have control over anything outside of ourselves.
yeah,
Um, we have control over how we react to anything outside of ourselves.
yeah,
Um, but for me, right, I always say to people, are you where you want to be right now?
yeah,
And if you aren't, what do you want to do about it? Like, you have a choice.
yeah,
You can stay in the way you are. And people go, oh, but it's money, it's this, it's that, it's da, 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I get there's some constraints. But like, you also have the ability to choose and look about, if you want something different, what's it going to look to get there?
hmm,
And are you willing to go after it? And I think you talked about choice and consequences
yeah,
in the podcast I was listening to, right? And I think that's it. We always have choices.
yeah. You always have a choice.
Always.
If you
And
don't see it, surround yourself with someone else who's passionately curious enough to see it,
yeah.
because they're not constricted by the same walls that you currently have around your head.
Yeah. And I've been having a conversation with someone in my life at the moment, and they're like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if this is it. And I'm like, well, I'm totally here to explore with you until you work out what it is. And
Yeah.
we can just sit and chat.
Oh my
You
goodness.
don't have to know in this moment.
And
Right?
here was your question. I want to get your thoughts on this. I think it's a great question. Are you where you want to be?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no,
Mm.
that's a great spot. And it's also that intersection has some dangers to it. And so I think moving forward requires two things. Number one, yes, it requires a new expectancy. So as we surround ourselves with people that give us this curiosity that dares us to start looking at that I do have choices and there are new things, that's really important. And I'm going to encourage our listeners: if you don't have it, it's everything you need is within your choice. You don't need anyone else to do anything to take advantage of what we're talking about today. It's in your hands. What do you choose to do? But then, we also need a second part, because hope not realized
Yes.
actually crushes the heart. And so
Yeah.
we need expectancy, yes, but we need sufficiency. And so that those same inputs just validate, you know what, it's okay that we want to be more, but you know what, you're awesome as you are.
It is the thing, right? I do this thing with people sometimes about unleashing our awesomeness,
Yeah,
right? That and my thing is, every single person is absolutely awesome. They don't always see it, but everyone is. Everyone has innately in them this great person. And sometimes we're just, I talk about it like we have layers of overcoats, like someone's expectation, boom,
yeah,
someone else's expectation, our expectation of ourselves. And then we're walking around like this,
yeah,
and we're facing the ground. We can't look up when we're so like put on by our expectations and everyone else's. We actually run a free course called Getting Rid of the Shoulds.
yeah,
Um, and it's 2 hours, so it's free.
yeah,
But it has people start to think about, how many shoulds do we put on ourselves? how much guilt and blame and expectation, and then like unmet expectation, that colors the way that we see ourselves and see the world, and how much do we put it on everyone else.
Yeah.
And if we can come to a place where there's no shoulds in life, it's like shitting on ourselves, sorry, you know,
Yeah.
like shooting on ourselves. Like if we can come to a place where we can take a look at that and put that aside, or shooting on others, there's so much freedom with that.
Yeah.
Like so much freedom.
So if you're listening on Lead Pedal Radio, you didn't see Robyn awkwardly hunched over, but it was a beautiful vision. And you know what? I just want to throw this out to our listeners. If you're like me, you carry, and this was the beautiful vision of Robyn hunched over. So watch the replay and watch just for this hunch moment, and you'll get the picture. But it is that we carry so much crap that isn't ours. Like we get weighed down by what we feel the expectations of others are. And it weighs us down, where we're just saying, what do you expect? And use others not to weigh you down, but to lift you up. And that is really cool. So Robyn, in today's world, when I work with people in transport, managerial level, like that run companies, they've got 25 hours of work in a 24-hour day.
Yeah.
And I think one of the obstacles, both for what you do and what I do, is like, well, this is just another make work project, and I really don't have time for this. But I think that my vision of peer support is that an initial investment creates something that kind of runs on its own, and that's the beauty of it. It's like delegating empowerment and engagement to your organization. So as a manager, you're not stuck trying to be that wheel all the time, because that's not your greatest value of contribution. Your greatest value of contribution is to empower your people so they don't need you.
And I think one of my respectful challenges to you, Dave, is like we talk about empowerment.
Yeah.
In our training, we talk about empowerment, that it's already in there.
Yeah.
It's already in there. It's just unleashing it.
You listened to my most recent post, or did you?
No.
That's exactly what I said. I said that if you realize that your potential is in you,
Yeah.
then you're not going out there. You don't have the pain of thinking that you don't have it yet, and you need to find it. And then what happens is you fall prey to all the marketers in the world who remind you who you're not, and then sell you their stuff. And it may be useful stuff, but if it's not attached to your authenticity and your journey, you're going to go around the mountain 1,000 times and still feel like you're at the same place.
Look, we're just two very similar people in different places. But getting back to that, in terms of a peer support program, right?
Yeah.
There might be a little bit of investment, and I mean a little. Well, it depends on the company. If you want to use a company to help you, some of us are about capacity building, not empire building. So some of us, don't make a lot of money, but love what we do. Yeah. But right, there's a little bit of investment in time, and maybe if you're getting someone to run some training for you, that, and I mean little, doesn't have to be huge, but the benefits, right, of workplace peer support are decreased absenteeism, like less turnover at work, more satisfied like people. So I'm thinking whatever business you're in, but I know the margins aren't great in trucking as far as I hear from everyone. So why wouldn't you want to support your employees to be happier in their jobs, have less time off, and not like leave as much? Like I'm kind of like, I think it's not rocket science. I want to make people happy at work.
I'm going to drop the mic.
Yeah. Not rocket science. Hello.
You know what?
And it's not clinical. That's the other thing too, right? We get caught in this trap that we think mental health, and everyone goes, oh my God, I have to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a social worker, or I don't want to talk about it because what if I, la, 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 la. And the reality is peer support is a non-clinical thing. It's people sharing with each other. Like I have one of those interesting diagnoses, right? I'll share. I have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I don't take medication, right? The side effects were ugh. So I had to work out how to have a great life with looking at other options. But I don't and haven't seen a psychiatrist or a social worker or anything in, I don't know, I think the last time was 2006-ish.
Yeah.
And I have lots of people in my life who have had similar struggles. In the past, years ago, I tried to kill myself. I can have conversations about that with someone and not be afraid to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And not think someone's going to try and fix me, give me a drug, sort of like
Yeah.
I'm just here. I think I always talk about let's just get our human back on.
Yeah.
We get our human back on. We're passionately curious. We're vulnerable too at times, and I get in occupations being vulnerable can feel like or some genders feeling vulnerable can.
Yeah.
Well, there was a program in Australia a couple of years ago. Am I allowed to swear? I'm assuming I'm allowed to swear a little in this.
You know what? The transport industry never swears.
Yeah, I know. There was a program in Australia. I don't know if it's still there, but it was for men. And Australians used to say, toughen the fuck up. And this program was called Soften the Fuck Up for men. I think it was soften. It was a word like that. But it was like, it's okay. Like you don't have to hold on to the macho, I'm not going to talk about it. And I actually have a video that I use of a guy who works in the electrical industry talking about he grew up and you don't talk about this and you don't do stuff. And he got to the place where he wanted to kill himself and he went, I realized that if I talk about it, like it doesn't feel as tough.
Yeah.
Like if I can engage in a conversation with someone who gets it and gets my life, I can actually get through this in a different way. And I don't think I'm minimizing the whole discussion around suicide because truth be told, my brother, who was a very senior executive in Australia, lost his job around COVID, couldn't get a new job, thought he had to provide for his family, didn't know how else to do it, and he killed himself. And like, I'm not minimizing this discussion, but we can talk about when we feel these things, we have a shot at supporting each other.
Right? I had a very unusual vision as you were speaking, and it was a humorous time with my father. I was about 15 years old. We were in the kitchen of our home in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and he was teaching me how to make German strudel. And this is the strudel that you serve. It's not apple strudel. It's not a dessert strudel. It's a strudel that goes in with like chicken and more savory stuff, and it's made in the pressure cooker. And for whatever reason, midstream, the lid of the pressure cooker flew off, and the strudel ended up like spraying like all over the ceiling of our kitchen. And he probably swore for a little bit, and then we laughed for a little bit. But then, you know what, if that's the metaphor for humans, then you're free. You're just free. Like, let it go, be human. And so much good, so much like peace and joy and relaxation and help lies on the other side. And it's so cool. So you know what, let's end with this, because I could talk with you all day.
Me too. Can I come back one day? I
You
love.
can, because I've actually got a gentleman, I just did an interview. He wants to be part of a program where we have a forum where truckers are on. And so the invitation is there. Robyn, will you come back?
Yes, well, as long as your audience want me to, right? You might get all this feedback going, what the hell was that? Why was she on? Now, if that's the case, just message me.
No.
Yeah, but
I care too much about the transport community to not have you back.
oh, cool.
Your message is my message. We share the message, and it's super important.
Yeah, it's pretty. I want to say thank you to everyone for what they do, because you are the unsung heroes. You're the people that people don't think about. And just so you know, I wanted to do this podcast first, but I'm going to be putting stuff on my social media saying, what the why are we not like standing up and saying thank you to these people who keep the economy going? Let's be real. If we didn't have truckers, we'd be screwed. So I want to stand up and do my bit, because I didn't even think about some of those things talked about food, about bathrooms, about showers, about any of that. And I'm not prepared to sit back and just go, oh, well.
Yeah. No, the environment has to change. So if they want to catch what you're doing on social media, they want to connect with Robyn Priest, how do they do that? And I'm going to post this for you listeners as the replay is posted on the YouTube channel. It's posted on wowtrucks.com on the main page. So you can catch the video and as well as the audio and see Robyn hunched over. Yes. Where do they connect with you?
Okay, so I'm bad at some of my social media, but I'm going to try and get better. So at the Robyn Priest is Instagram. I have a Robyn Priest official Facebook page. Again, it's Robyn with a Y and Priest as in church.
Yes.
Or really reach out, right? I'm going to say that because I know there's lots of people that listen to it, but I'd rather you reach out and be heard than not be heard. The website is www.robynpriest.com.
Yeah.
And there's also, for those of you who have a few minutes and want to laugh, we have a YouTube channel, Robyn Priest Live Your Truth. It's free. It says subscribe, but it's free. But last year in the pandemic, when it first started, I did 76 days of what was called Fit and Fun for Mental Health. Now, Fit and Fun for Mental Health is me being stupid for about 5 minutes with a little mental health message at the end. So I may have gone ice fishing in the puddle outside my apartment. And it was amazing. There was a fillet of fish at the end of my puddle. I may have tried out for the Winnipeg Bombers in the hallway of my apartment. I may have tried out for the Jets with my dog's toys as the defensive people in the ice hockey rink in my house. I may have ridden a broom horse and done dressage. So if, in those times that you have to sit in your trucks because nobody's letting you in and you want something silly to do, check out the YouTube channel. And there also may have been spaghetti darts.
Spaghetti dance.
Spaghetti onto a dartboard where I put, I feel, I think, blah, blah.
Did it stick?
Have some fun.
Did it stick? Did the spaghetti stick?
Yes. Take a look. It's a bit of fun.
Robyn, you're awesome. Thank you for being with us today. And I look forward to, you've accepted the invite, so you can't back out.
No, never.
I look forward to this driver forum. So listeners, check out our Facebook page. I'll probably create the event on the Wow Trucks Facebook page and invite people who want to take part in that to take part in that. It's going to be an open invitation. and we'll schedule it for sometime in May. And we'll have Robyn back and just talk about this all important topic. Why? Because you are worth it. You're worth it. And it's a choice away. It's a choice away. Robyn Priest, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yay! Okay, that's good. I'm going to stop recording.